Welcome to Xack Reacts. This is that Kingdom Hearts episode I promised you. Now I wanted to talk about a topic that's quite controversial amongst Kingdom Hearts fans. You see, in the game 358/2 days for the DS, you play as Roxas. He's a member of the organisation who goes around collecting hearts for them on missions, and after every mission he meets up with his best friends Axel and Xion, and the three of them are very good buddies. The response to this game is varied. There are people who like it, there are people who don't. In the end, what a lot of people can agree on, it has a pretty good story, even though the majority of it is filler, but the problem is the game itself, probably just the mission style isn't really the same structure as a Kingdom Hearts game, but it's alright. I think it works out as a pretty good game, but I'm not here to review the game, I'm here to talk about the ending. Now for some context, at the very end of the game, I won't go into too many details, but Roxas has to fight Xion. Now Xion's doing this on purpose, but Roxas doesn't really understand what's going on, and eventually he comes out the victor, and when he defeats Xion, unfortunately this causes all memories of her to cease and fade away. So after the battle, Roxas is a bit stunned and doesn't really recognise who Xion is. And boop! She's dying in his arms. Now of course this is the part where Xion takes advantage of the little time she has left to give her farewells to Roxas and says goodbye and asks him to do some things for her, all that sort of farewell, last word stuff. The thing is, right before she dies, right as she stops talking and falls unconscious for the last time, Roxas finally catches on. Suddenly he just remembers who she is. It's not entirely explained how, but it's probably something to do with hearts. I mean, it is Kingdom Hearts. But the thing is, his reaction is quite... here's the scene.
You were both my best friends. Never forget. That's the truth.
No! Xion! Who else will I have ice cream with?
Pretty depressing, isn't it? The music is all really sad, and Xion is very sad, and Roxas is very sad. It's a very sad scene. But that one line threw off a lot of people. The line Roxas says, "Who else will I eat ice cream with?" This is the line I want to talk about. Now, one interpretation that quite a few people got from that is Roxas only cares about ice cream. Yeah, you know, his best friend was dying in his arms, and his main concern is that he's not going to be able to eat ice cream with her. Because that is kind of what the line sounds like. Or rather, that's what the line could sound like if it was read out nice and flatly. Who else will I eat ice cream with? The other key interpretation of this line, which is probably more realistic, is that Roxas was crying out to his friend. You see, at the beginning of the game, or near it, Axel told Roxas, who was just blank, really didn't understand a lot of things, was learning about pretty much everything, only just coming into existence. Axel told Roxas that to be a friend is to eat ice cream with someone. That's a simple concept that Roxas can understand, and this is why Roxas says the line, "Who else will I eat ice cream with?" You basically replace ice cream with "who else will be my friend." You know, Roxas didn't understand friendship, so that was him expressing it in that line. But that's quite hard to buy. I can see why people wouldn't really understand that or go along with that. I mean, it is a bit vague. I suppose one other argument you could make is that it's symbolic. They spent the whole game eating ice cream together after all. Ice cream was pretty much a symbol of their friendship. So when Roxas was saying that, he was just using that as a euphemism for, hey, we're friends, don't go. Which I guess also makes sense. Personally, I don't have any of these interpretations. When I played the game and when I heard that line, I heard something completely different from my point of view. When I heard the line, I heard Roxas grasping for something to say. His best friend is dying in his arms and he's only just realised that. Keep that in mind. He's only just remembered that Xion's his best friend and that he's caused her inadvertently to die. So as this is happening, I think his mind must be racing. He must be trying to think of something to say. You know, he's about to lose his friend and he just came up with, "Who else will I eat ice cream with?" You know, you can hear it in his voice, if you interpret it that way, that he's just sort of reaching out. The whole impact of what's going on hasn't quite sunk in yet. He's just trying to reach her. So does this mean I'm completely okay with the line? No, of course not, because it isn't delivered that well. And I like Jesse McCartney, I think he does a good job voicing Roxas. But I do have a slight problem with this line.
Who else will I have ice cream with?
It's just, I think the emotional impact that it carried could have been carried a lot heavier if it had been delivered a little better. Like when he says the line, the words just sort of stumble out of his mouth. And for me, that's what carried the emotional impact for me. Like he was just piecing this together in his head as he said it. But I don't think that was intentional, that's the problem. The thing that really could improve the line a lot is emphasis. You see, when you put emphasis on a word, it can change the entire meaning of a sentence. Like for example, take this sentence here. Depending on what word you put emphasis on in this line, you can change its meaning in 7 different ways. You could maybe change its meaning in more ways if you put emphasis on more than one word. There are so many possibilities that you can achieve with emphasis, and emphasis alone. So what would I improve? Well, I would put emphasis on the word else. That alone could improve the sentence in many different ways. For example, like this is what the line sounds like.
Who else will I have ice cream with?
Alternatively, it could have sounded like this. Who else will I eat ice cream with? As it is, it almost sounds like he's putting emphasis on the ice cream. Who else will I eat ice cream with? That doesn't really sound good, that sounds bad. And that's sort of where the first interpretation comes from.
Who else will I have ice cream with?
But of course, emphasis isn't the most important factor here, and it's not the only factor, certainly not. There are other factors that can be used as well, such as tone or pitch. And in this case, these are 2 other things that could have been improved a bit. I'll start with pitch, it's easier. Basically, you all know what pitch is, the high and lows of your voice, and in Roxas's case, it was just a wee bit low. Listen again.
Who else will I have ice cream with?
As opposed to, who else will I eat ice cream with? I just want to say now, if you want, you may jest, okay? Make fun of my voice acting at your will. But do you get the effect? By raising the pitch, you're basically making the character sound different in a way that's more emotionally impacting. Like, by raising the pitch, his voice can sound more upset. And this again will lead me into my next point, tone. Now, you would be wrong to say that Jesse McCartney delivers the line completely flatly, that there's no emotion behind it. That's not true. I mean, watch the line again, just once more.
Who else will I have ice cream with?
If he delivered it with no tone whatsoever, then it would have sounded something like, who else will I eat ice cream with? Or, who else will I eat ice cream with? Tone is a subtle one, but the impact it carries is heavy. If the tone had been just a bit more sad, just a bit more washed up and teary-eyed that he'd lost his friend, you know, it could have carried a bit more impact. So if we combine the tone and the emphasis together, then we get something like this. No! Xion! Who else will I have ice cream with? But yeah, my silly voice acting aside, you get the point. A few little improvements here and there, and the line could have been improved greatly in its effect, you know? It just, I think Jesse McCartney's a great voice actor for Roxas. He's done a good job so far, and even then he does a good job. I think the line does well on its own, but it could have been improved. So that's my whole opinion of the line. I don't really think it's hate-worthy, as a lot of people think it is, and I certainly don't think it ruined the scene for me. The music alone still just, it's really good. And Xion's voice acting is, like, people complain about it a bit, but I think it's very soft and it carries an impact of its own. Xion as a character is very sweet and innocent, and I like her. So this scene was very sad for me, and I'm looking forward to the HD remix movie version of the game, which will hopefully further improve what's already good. So fingers crossed for all that stuff. Now you know my opinion on the line, and yeah, why don't you comment below and tell me what you think of the line and how you think maybe what of Kingdom Hearts in general if you want to talk about it. Anyway, thanks for watching.